On March 30th, 1867, the United States signed this treasury warrant, executing a single transaction to purchase Alaska from the Russian Empire for $7,200,000. Run that through a standard inflation calculator today, and you get roughly $168 million. That sounds like a bargain for a landmass larger than Texas, California, and Montana combined. But consumer inflation doesn't capture the weight of this deal. This chart shows a much more accurate metric, relative economic wealth. When you calculate that $7.2 million as a share of the United States' total GDP in 1867, the modern equivalent is actually $2.8 billion. At nearly $3 billion, the historical narrative shifts. This was a massive, highly risky fiscal gamble by a nation that was still deeply in debt and physically recovering from a devastating civil war. For that multi-billion-dollar investment, the government received 600,000 square miles of disconnected, frozen wilderness. It was entirely cut off by Canada, and the territory lacked any visible infrastructure. The architect of the deal, Secretary of State William H. Seward, was himself a survivor of the era's violence. On the night Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, this man, Lewis Powell, broke into Seward's home and stabbed him repeatedly in the face and neck. Seward survived, but his political enemies used the purchase to finish what the assassin started. The press mocked the acquisition as a polar bear garden and an icebox, popularizing the term Seward's Folly. This creates a striking contradiction in the historical record. A traumatized, debt-ridden nation had just executed a massive real estate deal for what appeared to be an unpopulated wasteland. To find the motivation behind the deal, we have to look at the seller. By the late 1850s, Russia was experiencing a severe financial crisis following its defeat in the Crimean War. Their hold on North America was incredibly fragile. Despite claiming 600,000 square miles, the Russian Empire maintained fewer than 400 permanent settlers in Alaska, clustered in isolated outposts like Sitka. St. Petersburg faced a strategic nightmare. Their great rival, Great Britain, controlled Canada. Without the resources to defend the territory, Russian leadership feared the British would simply march across the border and seize Alaska by force. Russian leadership treated the sale as a strategic exit. They calculated it was better to aggressively liquidate the asset to the Americans for cash, rather than eventually lose it to the British for nothing. By selling to Washington, Russia effectively blocked British expansion while securing the capital needed to keep their own empire solvent. On the American side, William H. Seward was acting with long-term aggression. He was a hyper-expansionist who had previously outmaneuvered both Britain and France to prevent them from intervening in the Civil War. This map shows Seward's strategy. Purchasing Alaska was a spatial maneuver to encircle British Canada and restrict its naval dominance. Seward also viewed the coast as a geographic bridge, a platform for the U.S. to dominate future trade routes into Asia. During midnight negotiations in March 1867, Seward took total control of the deal. He pushed the price from an initial $5 million up to $7.2 million to overcome the final hesitations of the Russian minister and secure the contract. The final purchase functioned as a massive venture capital play. Seward paid a premium to secure an American trade monopoly on the Pacific Rim. For the first 3 decades, the purchase seemed to fail. The U.S. largely ignored the new territory, leaving it under oversight that seemingly confirmed the Folly myth. That perception vanished in 1896. The Klondike gold strike immediately vindicated the investment, transforming the territory into a site of massive industrial extraction. The return on investment arrived quickly. The value of the extracted natural resources soon surpassed the original $2.8 billion equivalent price tag. This industrial windfall permanently erased the icebox myth and proved that Seward's economic foresight was accurate. In the 20th century, the value of the land shifted again. Alaska's strategic placement made it a defining geopolitical shield for North America during the global conflicts of World War II and the Cold War. The territory was finally integrated into the Union as the 49th state in 1959. William H. Seward never achieved the presidency, but he succeeded in drafting the borders of the modern American empire. Seward's signature on that $7.2 million receipt secured the northern rim of the Pacific. By the time the borders of the 49th state were finalized, the land once dismissed as a frozen garden had become the anchor for American status as a two-ocean superpower.